All right. Good morning, my friends. I am trying this again. Hopefully, my sound is working now. So, good morning. This is Dr. Minette Riordan. This is Painting in Your PJs live with Minette. It is definitely day two of the time change, and I slept in a little bit this morning, feeling a little sleepy and starting the morning with a little bit of technical difficulty. Thank you for your patience this morning if you're joining me live. So, I wanted to come in and just put a few finishing touches on this page that I started yesterday, and then start a new page this morning. And I was going through my bucket of words. I have a box where I keep little phrases and quotes that I think things that I loved. And yesterday, the theme that came up was all about dragonflies and change, inspired by an oracle card that I drew. And this morning, before I started the video, I added a few little white highlights. Yay! Thank you, Judy. Sorry about the technical challenges this morning. So I wanted to talk about, what do you do when you're stuck in that messy middle of a page, and how do you get past that? And there's a few different ways that you can get past that. So when I walked away from this page yesterday, I hadn't added any of the white yet. It definitely felt like it was in the messy middle, and I wasn't really sure where I was going with the page. It was feeling kind of dark and, not exactly maybe the feeling that I was trying to capture. And so I just let it sit. I let it dry. And then I closed the journal and just walked away. And so when I came and sat down this morning and looked at it again, I knew that the first thing it needed was some brightening up and some highlights to make this character, give her a little more life, but still keeping that silhouette. I wanted to add some details and some life to our beautiful dragonfly here as well. So I'm just coming in with my black permapaque and just adding a few little details. I just added some doodle patterns and one of my favorite Zentangle patterns in Zeppel to the wings of this dragonfly. Again, just bringing it a little bit to life here on that page. And sometimes just adding our own marks this way is a great way to move past that messy middle. So, what this page needed was some detail, and it also needs some pops of color. So I'm clear I'm going to come in with some yellow this morning, put some centers in my flowers, maybe a few spots of yellow around the edge of the page. I'm pretty pleased with the thickness of the page because I did add that layer of collage to it. My page is nice and stiff and smooth because I am working in this upcycled old book and using the actual pages in the book. And so they need a little bit of tender, loving care and sometimes a little more effort put into preserving the pages than if I were just working in a mixed media journal. So sometimes just adding detail and some little pops of color is what we need to get past the messy middle of a page. And sometimes what we need is a lot more dramatic. And we actually just need to take our white paint or our gesso and be willing to let go of a page and to completely paint over it and not let ourselves get too attached. It's one of my favorite processes is painting over things and letting go. It was something I learned from one of my earliest painting teachers, Whitney Freya, in a 21-day painting meditation where we had to paint over the same canvas for 21 days. We just kept painting on it, whether we loved it. It was a small canvas, whether we didn't love it. I still have the final painting on the canvas, which is this silly little bird. but it taught me so much about the process of letting go. So I think that Dragonfly also could use a few more pops of color. Excuse me, I could bring back that, maybe some of the pink a little bit. I wrote around the edge of my figure here that says waiting for change to happen is a slow and often tedious process. She wished she was the dragonfly. And there's a lot more that I could write and say about change. I think I'm wanting to bring back some of the lines of this Sacred Circle design from our Mindful Patterns membership. We had such a beautiful call and gathering yesterday evening and such rich discussions. I'm so loving that group. So I love it. Just looks like somehow this is almost like a crown or a halo. So maybe I'm even just going to continue that pattern a little bit around her and decide if I want to add some color or texture to that. Just enjoying adding the patterns, adding my own hand and mark to the pages. Definitely want a few more pops of color on here. And I found this quote in my stash of words that says, "True life is lived when tiny changes occur." True life is lived when tiny changes occur. And I think this is such an important thing for me to remember, that it's the small changes that matter, those small, consistent steps and actions. And sometimes, Georgia, what are you doing? I got one cat on the table, one cat in the lap. Everybody's wanting some attention this morning. And it even had the same colors as the palette that I was already using on here. But it's such a good reminder that one, life changes constantly, that there's never not change, and that change doesn't have to be big and dramatic and painful, but it doesn't always need to be exciting and dramatic either. But that it's important to just remember to stay on the path and allow for those tiny, tiny changes. Okay, I want to come in with some yellow here. And maybe a little bit of this high flow fluorescent pink, and just get a little bit of color going here. A nice small brush. I was talking to my friend Andrea Shebelu yesterday, and we were putting together kits for my retreat in May and talking about, brushes, and it's so, like, it's fun to have lots of brushes, but I find that I only use 2 or 3 brushes. One of them is this little small filbert. It's kind of rounded on the edges, and a nice flat brush and an angled brush, and that's really all I need. And it's funny we were talking about that, because those are the 3 that I have here, right? And then sometimes I like a little tiny one for details. But we often think that we need lots and lots and lots of supplies and brushes and variety. And I'm a big fan of creative constraints. All right, so this is all it needed, was just some little bits of yellow to kind of just liven it up a little bit, bring it a little bit more color. Maybe I'll bring some of that yellow in around the edges, just kind of frame it a little bit. Yellows tend to be fairly transparent colors, so you get a lot of the, colors still showing underneath, which I love, the transparency of those layers just brighten up. Still curious about this place that kind of feels like a fence line in the center here. It's kind of interesting, but I almost wanted it to be a little more water-like, so I might come in and get some more blue, maybe a little white and a little blue on there. Thank you, Judy. I'm pretty happy with where it's going as well. And sometimes this is the part that I love the most. I love that first part of just putting on the layers and playing with the paint. Excuse me. And then I really love the finishing touches. Like other people, the messy middle can be painful, right? The messy middle can be painful. I'm actually really loving the where this page with all these colors is going, and I'm curious to see. I do too. I like the blue. It is a mystery, but I don't want this fancy part in here, I don't think. So I'm just going to come in, and that was a piece of the collage paper. So I'm going to come in, well, that's kind of yellow because I didn't rinse my brush, but I just want to get rid of these little stripy bits a little more. So I'm going to let those get nice and dry, and then I'll come in with a little more blue because I want more of that mystery. I'm okay with some of these black around the other edges, and now I just have a little bit of that yellowy white on here. What if I just come in with a little bit more light, maybe even more kind of looking like that little bit of halo glow around her. Just brighten that up a little bit, even maybe put some highlights on my bubbles. I didn't know these were going to be bubbles when I started. Yes, hello, I see you. Normally Georgia would be chasing everything on the page, but she's actually sitting quietly in my lap for like at least 30 seconds here. Okay, so happy with where this page is going. I realize I left my dryer on the other side of the room. So let me grab a piece of scrap paper here. Here's one of the fun pieces of collage paper that I made in my found objects class. And what I might do to build up color and texture on the page is to use it to blot wet paint off. This is a great way to, if you don't have a dryer, to get some of that wet off and help dry things a little bit faster. And then I've got some interesting color I can start building up on this piece. I really love this. Maybe this is going to be inspiration for my next page today. And then I want to come back in and let's see, that was this pretty ultramarine blue. Come back in with a really nice dry brush. Get that yellow off there. And this is a fairly transparent, it's a very inexpensive, just deco art craft paint. I love the ultramarine blue. And it's also pretty transparent, so I'm going to not get complete coverage. So I'm still going to get maybe some of those lines back there, but they're going to get softened a little bit. So I can still see them just a little bit. I think I want that to be a little bit more blue. The blue is mixing with that where that gesso was just a little bit wet. I can use my brush strokes even to make it look like a little bit of water there. And so another question people often ask me is, how do you know when a page is finished? And I don't think that there is an easy answer to that question, but I can tell you that intuitively you know, right? You know when a page is finished and that you need to trust yourself. And you know, too much paint on there, you know when a page is done. And if you don't trust yourself, you end up overworking the page and messing it up. So, stop at a point that you like the page. Stop at a point that you like the page and walk away from it for 24 hours or even a couple of days, and then come back and look again, because sometimes we'll know our next move later. We don't know it in the moment. So I would say don't be in a rush. Don't be in a rush to call a page complete. I have found that with canvases that I'm working on, especially when I'm working on a bigger piece and I get really stuck in that messy middle, I walk away, I leave it on the easel in my studio, I look at it throughout the day, and I often dream about them. And so sometimes I literally wake up in the middle of the night knowing what to do with the painting. And I'll come down in the morning and do that. Or if I don't have time to do that, I will take a sticky note and literally write on the sticky note what my next step is so that I don't forget. I'm still wanting to brighten this up, so I'm coming in with some of that, just a little tiny touch of fluorescent pink, because it's still like it feels almost there, but not quite. And I think maybe this is just that final little pop that it needs. Help and create even more contrast between the mysterious blue and our little blooming flowers here. And I think I'm going to come in and I'm going to bring the pink back to these wings. And notice I'm just painting right over all those marks that I made. Neon colors are very transparent. They're great for putting top layers over. I can still see all of that, but this is another example of I'm just painting over what came below in order to capture the look. So already it's exactly what it needed, was just that little bit of bright. And I'm going to just bring a little bit of that pink up in here. So again, I want to move that color around the page so that now we have almost a frame of that pink, and my eye is moving around the page. If I didn't have the pink in multiple places, my eye might get only pulled here. And if I had left this without any detail, maybe my eye would be pulled here, but I really want the viewer's eye to move around the page in different places. And I'm kind of wanting to brighten up the body. And I'm wondering if I still have a nice neon green as well. It may be over on the other table. I had a client here the other day who was having so much fun with neons, but let's see if we can just brighten up the body. It always amazes me how colorful dragonflies are, both their wings and sometimes their bodies can be different colors. Sometimes they're just dark black, but I'm wanting that body to just stand out and not sort of disappear. So that just gave it a little more substance. And I'm just being curious here because I'm feeling like, oh, that's kind of a cool. I love this particular shade of green. And what if she was a little less black? So now I'm getting to that part where should I just stop, right? Am I going too far? And I'm looking at it going, yep, I really like the black. So I'm going to grab a handy dandy baby wipe and push that green back, that I like the black and sort of the mystery of the silhouette. Definitely been having a lot of fun with these silhouettes lately. And definitely been, I think because I'm starting with the black and white collage, which is not my normal, like I'm getting a different grungier look in my pages, which is fun and interesting. Okay, so I am going to call this page done for now, and I may months from now be flipping back through this journal and looking and thinking, oh, here's what it needs. It needs that one more thing. But for now, this page really feels pretty complete and I really like it. So I am going to scoop up this extra yellow here. And I've got kind of an interesting page happening. I also found this, someone had sent me this little card from Bob Ross and it said, if you don't like it, change it. It's your world. And I really loved this. And I love the note she wrote on the back, which says, Dear Minette, thank you for changing the world in the most wonderful ways. So that one also popped out at me. If you don't like it, change it. It's your world. And I think that's so true about visual journaling or mixed media art of any kind. If you don't like it, you can change it. You don't have to be in any way committed, right? And it is possible. And Judy, thank you. I really like it the way that it is also. And I'm super intrigued with this page. This one isn't quite dry yet, so I think maybe I'll just work on this page here. And this, I had a ton of fun in my found objects class, creating all kinds of marks and lines and patterns. And for this one, I actually used this crazy seed pod off of this weird flowering tree in my front yard and broke it in half because I tried, playing with the ends and doing all kinds of things. But when I broke it in half, see if this one, they're getting kind of dried out now, and they're also full of seeds and all kinds of bits that I got these really, really cool frayed ends, and it made this kind of marvelous brush, which is how I got this cool texture on this page. And again, I have this huge stash now of all this amazing paper. Okay, and that wet up there is still pretty yellow. And it's interesting since I don't have my little craft dryer to maybe dry the page in a different way. So I'm feeling interestingly drawn to this black and yellow combination, a different, unusual combination for me. And Diego, no, you can't come walking across the wet paint. I wish you could see him. He's literally sitting right beside my monitor over there. Okay, so loving this, don't know where it's going, but I'm going to get this page started and then I'll probably finish this page up tomorrow. But I think right now what it needs gesso. It just needs to get a good covering of color down on the page. And I'm going to come in with a brayer, which just creates different texture. So learning when you're working on backgrounds to try different tools, to discover the tools that you like. They create different patterns, different marks. You get different amounts and kinds of coverage. And I don't need to cover up all the paint. So this is another great way. All right, buddy, you need to go. Go on. I keep a spray bottle to keep the cats off the table. He likes to chew the ends of all my paintbrushes and my pencils. I have so many things that are chewed on, and all I have to do is show him the water bottle and he will take off running. It didn't take very long to teach him that does not like the water bottle. But what I love about just coming in and putting gesso over the top of the page, so we've got an interesting page happening here. I can still see some of the color showing through. It's a great way to get past the messy middle of a painting where you've just had a lot of fun putting different marks and color down on the page. I can always bring some of this color back at a later time. Cleaning my brayer off on my newsprint. And I'm wondering if this is wet enough that I could do some scribing through, maybe even a little bit of writing. Still feeling like maybe that theme of change is going to flow onto this page over here. This is actually a little bamboo calligraphy pen or dip pen that's great for mark making, but it works great for scribing as well. Bamboo barbecue skewers often work really great. So just getting a little bit of texture down on there. Let's see what happens if I come in and maybe even pick up a little bit of that white. So I picked up even a little bit of the blue and a little bit of white. So I'm getting this really interesting page happening here. And sometimes I love pages in my journal where there doesn't need to be a lot going on. So I have this very active page that tells a clear story. And sometimes it's nice to just have a little bit softer page and a page that's all about marks and color. And I'm just, I don't know why I'm feeling in love. And maybe because this feels like the winds of change, like there's marks going diagonally and then there's the spirals over the top as well. So it's just an interesting piece all on its own. And I'm continuing to just paint over, right? Everything that came before. Find my nice little scraper here. And again, just being patient with yourself because we can't always see where to go next. And sometimes we don't need to know, right? Sometimes we don't need to know. And just by putting that gesso and writing a little bit on the page, it kind of gave me clues about where to go next. As always, I don't care that I'm covering over what was underneath. So this newsprint is thin newsprint, so I'm going to carefully put it down to get a nice smooth surface. I don't have quite enough matte medium under there. I know you've seen I'm really generous with the matte medium to really get those edges under there. It's so important to have some kind of a scraper like this when you're working with collage because it really helps you push the matte medium out to the edges and get that nice smooth edges and smooth surface. And it's funny, it looks different now that it's all flattened out. So again, our theme today has been about what do you do when you're in the messy middle of a page? So you have a couple of options. You can just keep painting through that messy middle, adding more color, adding more marks, which is what I did on this page. You can take your gesso and add a layer of white or black over the surface, and you never lose what came underneath. It adds to the texture and interest of the page, this edge over here, a stick. So you never completely lose anything that was underneath when you do that. And it's so important to not be attached. So painting over all or part of a piece is another great way to move past the messy middle. Adding some collage papers, covering up parts that you don't like is another way that you could do that. And then how do you know when a piece is finished? It's about learning to trust yourself as an artist, right? And to trust that it's done. And sometimes it's just done for now, right? Sometimes it's done for now, not done forever. And I think I want to take a little bit of black paint. Excuse me. And I'm going to come back in with this crazy seed pod that I picked up in my front yard. And I'm going to get some paint on there. And I'm going to just continue the pattern over the edges of the page. And it's just going to pull that piece of collage paper right into my journal. Also, this thing is full of seeds on the inside, so the more that it frays, the more the little seeds start to fall out on the inside. So it's a little bit of a messy process. Kind of wondering if maybe there's a face in here somewhere. Yvonne's not here this morning. She always is brilliant at seeing faces on the page. But now it feels like that piece of collage material is completely incorporated into the page, was the inspiration for the page. This page doesn't need a lot. Sometimes a page like this makes me happy. And it might be that I come back and add some words or a little bit of writing. Get all those seed pods off of there. Because I have put that matte medium over the top and the bottom, I have a lot of opportunity to move things around. It's almost like there's two eyes going on here. Maybe wanting to bring that black all the way out to the edges of the pages just to make it feel complete. And I love that all of a sudden the newsprint that I used is just gone. And it's fully incorporated into that page along with some seed pods. You can see why I had so much fun recording my Found Objects class. The link for that class is in the description of this video because these were the kind of things I did. But I'm also really having fun figuring out what to do with all the bits I created. And what I'm noticing here is that what's left over, I covered up that messy page, I added the piece of collage, and I have some beautiful resonance between these two pages with the yellow and the little bit of green in there as well. And so, let's see, I'm going to come back. My yellow is getting down, down, down to the end. It's going to be time to restock paints. I'm just going to come in with my finger and maybe bring a little bit of that yellow even more onto the page. And for me, these kind of pages are so much fun to create that are so simple, and they're really about exploring marks and color and really different palettes. Not my normal. This feels like more like my normal, and this feels more like just a fun stretch and exploration. Maybe just a tiny, tiny bit of this green here. I love where the green is because it's almost like it's framing that page a little bit, so we get a really interesting look with that kind of frame on the page. But I love this, again, a relatively simple page. Feels a little stormy, right? It feels a little bit of a lot of things, but it's an interesting complement to what's going on this other page. And as I start to add color, then I'm like, okay, I want to reflect maybe even just a little more of those colors. I'm going to push that yellow back. I want it to feel a little more integrated in there. So the page just keeps changing, right? The page just keeps changing. And what if we put just a tiny little pop? And it's all an experiment, because if I don't love it, guess what? I can just gesso over the whole thing. So what if we also just come in with some little echoes. Don't need a lot of the pink. And there's kind of definitely a little bit of an interesting abstract face happening here. And I love finger painting. I love getting my own marks into the page in so many different ways. And now I'm kind of in that place where, I liked it better when it was black and white. And what happened? So this is what I do. So this is a page that's in a messy middle, and I'm like, yeah, not loving where it's going. I loved where it started, and maybe I overworked it. So the best thing I can do right now is we're just going to gesso over the whole thing and see what happens. And sing the theme song to Frozen. Let it go, let it go. And I like to ask when I'm doing this, and I'm loving using the brayer instead of the scraper because it creates just a different look on the page, is what else is possible? Like if I'm willing to let this go, what else is possible? And even this page feels really interesting. Maybe this is going to become a journal page that I'm going to write over the top of, kind of feeling like maybe it needs some stencils. I can even now come back with that scraper and smooth out some of those lines. And just learning to play and experiment. I don't need this page to be pretty or special. When I give myself permission to play on the page, I learn so much. I learn about color, I learn about tools and what my tools do. And this is, again, that great way to just get through that messy middle, to not get caught up in endings, but to stay connected to the process and not to the journey. So I'm going to pause there. I'm going to let that page get really dry. I'm going to let it sit maybe for a few days. Like I'm wanting to come in now with my Stabilo and maybe even bring back some of the black, or maybe draw a moody face on here. But what I know right now is that it needs to rest, and that if I keep going, I'm just going to make a mess because it's still really wet. So Judy, where can you reach me personally? Is that what you're asking? So email is the best place. I think you have my email address. Yeah, so I think email is probably the best place. Or you can message me on Facebook, either one of those. All right, my creative friends, thank you so much for joining me live or for watching the replay. So today was about finishing pages and letting go of the messy middle and being willing to just paint over things that we don't like, and how to move past the messy middle by just adding a little more color, a few more marks. And then how do we know when a page is finished? We don't always. So being willing to just let it go and to let it rest. And it'll be really interesting to come back tomorrow morning and see, what do I see differently than maybe I see now. But this, I'm actually really loving this kind of groovy, grungy page. It's a nice soft page in nice contrast to this more busy page over here. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining me. Please like the video so we can encourage other people to come and watch along. And I hope that you find some time to create today in your visual journal or whatever project that you're currently working on. Have a beautiful rest of your day. I'll be back tomorrow morning.